We are now embarking into the age of intelligence, but somehow I find myself surrounded by two extreme emotions. On one side, I see everybody experiencing fear of what's going to happen, how things are going to evolve. And on the other hand, I see everybody excited about this opportunity at the same time. I've never seen anything like this before. This is a unique time for all of us, and the age of intelligence is upon us. We have to think differently. We have to act differently. We have to organize differently in order to navigate what's ahead of us. This is a really exciting time where the entire playbook can be defined very differently. This is something that, every wave that we have seen in the past, this is a bigger, better wave, and we have to be ready to surf this wave. Think about the AI outcomes that you can drive in your organization. And especially all of you have been working towards this direction for a long time. You're all data professionals, you're focused on this area. The state of affairs of taking AI into your enterprise in an as-is state is not going to scale. And this is not even about hallucinations. I think AI models will get better at handling hallucinations. This is not about perfect data quality. There is no thing as perfect data quality. This is about the continuous state of improvement, both in terms of what is the data that you need to inform outcomes, where should you focus, is it boil the ocean as an approach, or looking at what matters most for your business. But taking the existing state of affairs and plugging it right into AI is a recipe for chaos, not hallucinations, for chaos. Because while AI is good at inference, it's not great at stitching together data automatically. That doesn't happen. You still have to operate against a fragmented state of the enterprise. Lots of silos, lots of information that is redundant, replicated, spread across the enterprise. And if you use AI directly on top of it, you're just building an application stovepipe. That's not the best use of AI. You want to unlock the capabilities that are offered by AI by really looking at what is the best way in which you can create a system of context that informs the agentic AI. And this is an opportunity for all of us to think differently. This is different from your application-first architectural thinking. This is about data-first foundation that you need to lay out for your enterprise. That is where you will be able to provide better context for your systems of decision. Think about the hurdles that we face. Just think about the state of art today. If you take an AI model, apply it directly against 5,000 different tables that you have, there is a text to SQL translation layer that has to get better. Today, and this is data in the industry, it sits at 33% accuracy in that text to SQL translation. That itself is a hurdle. So slapping AI directly on top of SQL tables is not necessarily the answer. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to make it meaningful, useful, accurate, get the correct results out of it. That's like, taking the 3-generation-old system and plugging it into the future of your enterprise. That's not the way to make the transition. Versus thinking about it as a data graph, where you're bringing together the information, unifying it, not just solving for MDM, master data management, or even, let's peel the onion back. Let's think about, all of you started this journey with trying to match data from different sources because there were multiple copies, lots of redundant information. Entity resolution was the answer for that. As soon as you started doing that, you started thinking about, out of the 10, 20, 30, or 100 attributes that we are managing, what is the survivorship that needs to be applied? Master data management was the next big concentric circle, because it was all about figuring out that survivorship logic. The next part of this journey is the 360 view, the bigger concentric circle, as you're moving closer and closer towards that better system of context that you need to build for your enterprise. You need to think about the transaction, interaction, the relationship details, how these different domains are connected to each other. And that's the semantic construct that you're building inside your enterprise. How do you further attach more definition to that? You start to layer what that particular entity means. You attach an associate meaning with it that makes business sense. Because again, you're trying to eliminate the friction that you see on the left-hand side, which is this text-to-SQL translation versus already providing data with meaning associated with it that you can leverage right away with your AI models. The barrier. Today, again, I go back to the statement that I made before, application-first thinking. CRM looks at the information a certain way. Humans are taking information in from there. The business person is sitting there looking at the other system. This whole swivel chair technology that we got used to, where I would go from the CRM screen to the marketing screen to the support screen to all these different systems. The human brain was building that shared context. That was the human in the loop that was aiding, assisting the business process by making sure that they could stitch together the information. However, you introduce AI into the process, think about the speed at which you want to operate. Do you want AI to be making decisions with a different set of data as compared to the humans in your organization? No. These two things have to work together. This is about co-agency. This is about making sure that both of these processes, both of these paradigms are operating against the same set of information. However, you cannot do that if you are building your systems and capabilities in the same manner as before. That doesn't scale. You can't just throw this kind of data into a data warehouse or a lake house and expect magic to happen. Somebody has to layer the meaning and the context on top of it, and then you have to think about how real-time operations, the agentic operations, the human resources inside your organization all interact at different speeds, but they all interact with the same data and move the decisioning process further. And that's where this concept of context intelligence comes into play. You have very powerful AI models inside your organization now available to you. Everybody, it's your organization, your partners, software vendors, everybody has access to the same models. AI models are on a path to commoditization. That is not where the differentiation is going to lie. The historical information about your business resides inside your business, inside your systems, inside your enterprise. That is the capability that you need to bring together with the AI models, and that's where you need a bridge between these two things. Think about, you've been in this modernization race for a long time, where you're constantly thinking about modernization to the cloud, the digital transformation, all these transformations that you have gone through. There is no on-off switch. You don't wake up one day and you turn on the switch or off and retire your legacy and suddenly you're on the modern backbone. It does not happen. There is no way to do that. You have to think about building a bridge between your legacy, which is your current state, all the way into your Horizon 3, which is your future state, and think about how to connect those two states together. Because your legacy will feed the context in the middle. Your future state business processes are going to operate on top of this context that you're building. This is the bridge in the enterprise that has to be put together in order for us to transition to the future state. And the future state at the same time continues to contribute into this context, because every AI process that you will enable inside your organization will create more data. But you want that data to be a part of this continuum, because the humans who are going to look at the information and want to make decisions, they want that shared context available to them. They don't want the AI process just to be off on its own without any visibility to the rest of the organization. This is why this bridge is extremely important for all of us to think about. This is not just a vendor providing capabilities. This is the joint state of the industry that we need to think about and work towards. OpenAI just recently launched their frontier capabilities. Look at this stack. Look at the bottom. You have the system of record, which is your existing set of systems. And at the top, all the possible agentic and AI interfaces that you can be using, and not just from OpenAI, from any vendor out there. That's where the new application creation is going to take place. But look at the second box from the bottom, business context. This is the hurdle or the bridge that we have to overcome. This is a necessity. As you move towards this future state, everybody is going to talk about this gap that has to be filled. But the good part is that all of you have been working on this for a while. Whether you knew it or not, you were building a system of context by bringing together information from all the different sources inside your organization. And you did that with a specific purpose in mind. You looked at what is the most important data that you need for your business to operate with and how to stitch it together, because you were already preparing for that direction. And that direction is now the time where we are, where we need to start leveraging this capability, not just for our digital transformation or business processes, but for agentic processes, where we can unlock more value out of this. Think about the simple problems that we have looked at before. Simply asking a question, if you're, let's say, in the wealth planning industry, and your financial advisor has to look at some of the details in terms of the customers that they work with, the simple question that they can ask or have asked in the past is, how many of our customers are over 50, so that they can look at what is the segment of their business that they need to start doing some retirement planning for. And then they go to work. They start engaging with them, start thinking about what they need to create as a very tailored plan and present it to their clients. Now AI can play a role in this, like everything else, where you can not only ask a more complex question, you can say, how many clients will retire in the next 15 years, and what plan should each one of them have? Now, on one hand, it's a little bit more complicated. However, it may sound like a simple thing. But think about the information you need in order to answer this question. The very mention of retirement in the next 15 years. First of all, if you're a global organization and have a global clientele, what is the definition of the next retirement in each one of those jurisdictions? What is the retirement age in US versus UK versus Australia? Large language model can probably provide you that context. You don't have to build a system for that. It can provide you that jurisdictional specific information right away. Then you need to convert it into the time span with which you will query data for each jurisdiction, because in some cases it'll be 65 years as the retirement age, in some cases it'll be 70. So it can then formulate a query by geography that can be asked off the data. But if I'm doing retirement planning, I just don't want to know information about myself. I'm trying to create a plan that understands what the household is, who are the other members of the family, who do I have to plan for, what types of things should I consider in that process. Now suddenly I need to expand the context from one person to the entire household and the makeup of the household. This is how the context to serve the question is going to expand. And yes, you've been focused on one part of the data domain that you were catering to, but you're also simultaneously starting to think about how to expand that footprint, how to go beyond what you have, because these are the types of scenarios that you can serve, but at the same time, the information context needed for serving those questions is going to broaden. That's both the opportunity as well as the work that we have to do. And this is where, what are the foundational capabilities that need to be in place to create this system of context? Some of the things that we foundationally thought about from the very early days, I didn't know that there would be something called Agentic AI back in 2011. I had no idea, but what I did know was that, first of all, the state of the silos in the organization was going to rapidly increase. And that's what we have seen in the last 15 plus years. You have gone from 3 systems to a dozen systems to 300 applications to 600 applications, and it keeps increasing. And with AI, with how easy it is going to become to create new applications, guess what? You'll end up with 6,000 applications. So fragmentation and silos have been rapidly increasing. That was very clear. What was also clear back then, that every organization, every person who's working in the technology space is always trying to figure out how to have a business process move faster. Please raise your hand if the mandate in your business is, how do we slow down our business? If you belong to that crowd, please raise your hand. I would like to have a conversation with you. I've never met anybody who said that. Everybody wants to aim at growth. Everybody wants to aim at faster speed. And those two facts were clear right from day one in our journey. And that's why we built what we built, where we built this system which had these properties, these capabilities from day one. However, back then, nobody was looking at knowledge graphs. Nobody was looking at semantic context. In fact, we were not even describing these things as systems of context. We called it by the name master data management, a very narrow sliver of the problem. But we looked at it as an opportunity where we could go solve that as step number one. Think about, we are creating a product, we are looking for use cases. That is a use case that we can slot into and solve for. But we are building the larger platform, knowing that this is the direction that the secular trends are pointing to. And lo and behold, today, everybody has a need for a system of context. We have come from system of record to systems of engagement to now systems of context. That is the durable foundation that we need to think about and create. And the reason why we need to think about that is, as you think about the pace and velocity of the AI innovation that is going to be in front of you, how do you build capabilities that allow you to move faster? That is where the data-first thought process becomes important. Think about the application orientation. On the left-hand side, you have this application-first thought process that we have lived with for several decades. And it was the right thing to do back then, because that is what we were solving for. But every time you thought about a business process, you thought about an application you could create, which then had its own database, which then had its own data. And data from those applications was the exhaust. And then you figured out ways of handling that exhaust. You were building catalytic converters. Now you have to think about data being the engine that drives this forward. And that requires you to invert the pyramid, the thought process around this. You have to think about data-first principles, because this is the bridge between the past and the future. Past is your legacy, all the infrastructure that you have. Future is the AI reinvention that you're going to drive inside your enterprise. Data as an interoperable, collaborative asset. Because not only are your legacy systems going to contribute into it and receive information back from it, because that's how they need to refine the information and run the business processes they are responsible for today, but the new capabilities that you create with AI are also going to be in that consumption and contribution paradigm. But it's one set of interoperable asset that you work with. And that's the direction that we are moving towards. If you look at this, the context intelligence capabilities, our vision that you will see supported by the roadmap that we are creating is to be able to govern and manage the entire life cycle of this core asset inside your organization. All the way from data governance to unification to the creation of data products that are ready for consumption. And yes, even for us, this is not going to happen overnight, but you will see the march towards this direction because we think that this is an extremely important problem to solve in the enterprise. And what excites me the most is that the fact that all of you have been on a part of that journey with us, and I'm really excited about the next phase of this journey with you. Think about the innovation that you're driving in your business. We work across industries, but data is the digital asset that is the key to unlocking and creating the faster pace of operations inside these organizations. You're creating new treatments, bringing them to market, serving the customers, the patients in the market with novel treatments. The same principles also apply to selling hamburgers, serving billions of customers across the globe. Power equipment, making sure that that is deployed, created, and utilized in a manner where that can drive the economy. All of these things are now turning into digital businesses. Each one of your businesses is becoming a digital and AI business. This is how we have to think about the state of affairs as we move towards the future and move ourselves from this messy, siloed, fragmented state towards a high-speed, well-woven orientation across the enterprise. But some of the things that are required and necessary, everything has to be explainable. You have to be able to trace it back and forth to make sure that you're able to understand and explain why certain decisions are being made and how they are being made. You have to make sure that the governance guardrails are in place. While everybody likes the concept of automagical outcomes, but there is no magic. Nobody wants magic in your enterprise. Your business runs on precise outcomes, not 80% will get me there. And this is where we have to tie it back to the ROI that we can deliver. Each one of these operational changes is an opportunity for creating more value, but let's start with the value that we can build and deliver, and then work back from it to create those capabilities and roll them out. Thank you.